So, as most of you probably know already, I'm, really passionate about technology and programming and computer science in general. What I wanted to talk about was why I think that everyone in the world should be able to program computers. And you might think, well, I'm not interested in that. Why should I bother sort of learning a programming language if I don't want to program computers? And the reason is sort of because, in my opinion, programming gives you that underlying foundation, that sort of tool set to be able to build on top of and build what you want. So once you've got that underlying knowledge, if you can really program, well, and you can use those tools really effectively, you can then, when you've got that fundamental understanding, you can build whatever you want to build. And it's at that point that it's only limited by your creativity, because you've got the tool set to be able to build that stuff. And you could even go as far as building, a robot, for example, with something like the Raspberry Pi, because it's built for you to tinker with it and develop on it. It supports Python straight out of the box if you, installed the Raspbian OS when you're sort of setting up the Raspberry Pi, for example. Another example is, you could make a simple website and then it could be accessed from, anyone in the world with access to the internet. And these sorts of things just, weren't possible 10, 20 years ago. And even though, computers haven't been around for that long, I think they're really, going to change the way that we live our lives going into the future. And we've already seen this to, a huge extent with, for example, Apple and Microsoft and Google. Because, let's use Apple for an example. I think they're probably arguably the most influential company in the world, because they've made the software and they've made hardware, and the software that they've made is just changed the entire sort of way that so many people live their lives. And it's something that I don't see is going to stop anytime soon, because technology and programming languages, they're only sort of picking up in their sort of speed, their development and everything like that, the amount of people learning them. It's why I try to teach Python as much as I can, and I've come up with my sort of just trying to sort of get that into people's heads that they can learn to program, and it's really not that difficult. And one thing a lot of people don't understand as well is that if you can program one language really, really well, at least 90% of the skills that you learn in that language are going to be transferable to, a wide variety of other languages. So it's not like you've got to learn every single language. You've only got to learn the fundamentals of programming once, and then you can use that to be able to program in any other languages with really very little adaptation. You only have to learn sort of the different syntax that the program uses, and that's, pretty much it in a lot of cases. So I really don't think that anyone should be limited in that respect, and I think it's important to have the right sort of mindset, because it's going to take time to learn that initial language, and it's going to take a bit of perseverance and commitment to be able to do that, because you might say, oh, I haven't got the time, or I just watch TV or do something else. But I really think that's one of the best things that you can do with your time, is learn to program, because if you can do that, you can just have an access to so many things that wouldn't be possible without that sort of knowledge and skill set. And I think the process that you go through when you try to learn a new language is really sort of going to help you to understand how you can learn most effectively. And sure, you might have done that in part in university if you've got a degree now, but you can really sort of change the way you think about problem solving. And if you're interested in mathematics, that's going to be a real benefit to you, because you'll probably already be quite good at that. But even if you don't have an interest in mathematics and you're still sort of open to the idea of trying to learn how to solve complex problems bit by bit and things like that, and I think programming is a fantastic way to sort of exercise that and to sort of get you thinking about things without it being boring necessarily, because you're actually building something that you want to build. You're building something that interests you. If you want to do something related to, marketing your new agriculture business, you could do that through learning to program and, develop your ideas into these more sort of advanced projects that you're working on, because you have that understanding of that, fundamental programming language, or potentially more than one language if you're all, building big sort of full-scale applications at this point. And if you have a brilliant idea, maybe you want to make the next Facebook or whatever, you can do that just by programming it. And it's such a low barrier to entry in terms of the initial startup cost in a lot of cases. It's why you get all these tech startups in Silicon Valley. But I'm not saying you have to be a tech startup in Silicon Valley or anything like that. But even if you just wanted to program something to make your life easier, you could write a simple program to open your garage door, for example. Just put a little Raspberry Pi or Arduino or something like that, little by the garage sort of mechanism, and program it. It'll open and close from an app on your smartphone. If you want to program it, then you're literally limited by your creativity, as I've said repeatedly throughout this video, because I think it's so important that people sort of understand that, because I think a lot of people don't sort of quite grasp the potential of what you can do when you can program, because a lot of people think, oh well, you can make a website, big deal. But it's not just being able to make a website. If you can learn to program, you can do literally anything in terms of you can create so many things that you couldn't before, or you'd have had to pay someone else to do that before, someone with that skill set. And it's so, I'm not going to say it's easy to acquire that skill set, because it does take hard work and perseverance, but if you can finally sort of get to the point where you can program, then you're going to sort of really help yourself in terms of making your life easier and just doing so many things that you would never have thought possible before. And I just think that's sort of fantastic, and I thought I just think everyone should learn to program.